Good afternoon, and thank you, Dr. Brown, for that very nice introduction. And I would also like to thank the AVID Center for inviting me to share my AVID story with you. If you can believe it, you can make it happen. It's achievable. These words take me back more than 50 years, back to my high school days, back to the summer of 1958. I realize that most of you were not even born yet. However, that summer, I went to Bayou Girls State in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to learn about government and the legislative system. And I'm quite sure that's exactly what I did. But I remember the summer of 1958 for a very different reason. I remember it because that's when I learned what it takes to turn an idea into a reality. I wish I could say that my idea was involving global politics or world peace, but it was much simpler and far more personal. It was about starting a drill team at a Catholic high school. It began innocuously enough when I enthusiastically participated in one of our many activities at Girls State, a military-style drill team. The more the group practiced, the better we became. And by the end of the week, starting a drill team at my high school had gone from being a fond wish to being a major ambition of mine. So I began my plan of action. My first step was to see the principal of my high school, who was a nun. Her name was Sister Madalena, and I remember her very vividly. You see, during this time, the nuns still wore wide, starched, black habits, trimmed in white, that covered their head and part of their face. And they also wore long black dresses that reached from their neck to their shoes. So you can see why it's so vividly in my mind. Additionally, Sister was tough, and the schools were very strict. So asking her for a drill team with skirts above the knee was really a long shot. Our school band was not very large, so I thought this would be a great way to expand our school's presence on the football field during the halftime show, as well as getting more students involved at school and generating more school spirit. I was nervous, just as I am right now, but I decided to make an appointment with her. Sister listened to me, and she said, "Janice, you're a great student, so continue to focus on your algebra in preparation for college." Yes, she was also my algebra teacher. Finally, she said, "The drill team is not an appropriate idea right now." I was disappointed, but not discouraged. As I passed her in the hallway each day, I just smiled, and occasionally I would say, "Just think about it." You see, we also had a great relationship. So after having done exceptionally well on an algebra test one day, I asked if I could meet with her the next morning, and she said yes. And I thought, wow, another chance to convince her. This time I brought my sketch pad with the design for the skirt that stopped right at the top of the knee. So when I knelt down for inspection, there was no skin visible. Then I received the guidelines and reviewed with her the selection process and showed a sketch of how the band and the drill team would look on the football field together. It was really impressive, and she looked at everything, and she said, "Yes." And she looked at me with this stern face, "Don't make the skirts too short." And I understood that. Needless to say, I was ecstatic. So what does this story have to do with AVID? Well, when you believe in something, you can make it happen. It is achievable. Now fast forward to November 2002, and another opportunity to turn an idea into a reality. That's when my AVID journey began. I was principal of Sellers Middle School in Garland, Texas, an ethnically diverse working-class city. Among the 13 middle schools, Sellers, for a long time, was near the bottom academically. Initially, the teachers faced the challenge of trying to reach very diverse learners who had many gaps in their education due to high mobility. We, after many years, began receiving recognized status based on the TAKS test. So our students' overall achievement continued to improve, but we really needed something more, something to enhance the learning environment even more and provide more academic opportunities for a predominantly at-risk population. But what would it be? It was a fall Sunday morning, and my husband and I were visiting with our grandchildren in McKinney, Texas, while my son and daughter-in-law were out of town. While reading the newspaper, I noticed a title on the front page of the McKinney section of the Dallas Morning News, which really caught my eyes: Reaching the Forgotten Middle. The entire article focused on middle school students who were previously making B's and C's and just doing enough to get by in their regular classes, but had the potential to do more rigorous coursework. The article proceeded to describe how the students' lives had changed, and they looked forward to coming to school every day to their AVID class. Students were quoted as they explained how they were excited about getting prepared to go to college, even though they had to stay up at night 2 hours or more studying in order for them to be successful in the honors and pre-AP classes that they were now taking. Additionally, I was intrigued by the acronym AVID, Advancement via Individual Determination, which at the time I thought were a clever combination of words. From the beginning to the end, the entire article was describing so many of my students: college potential, low income, lack of parental involvement, underrepresented in colleges and universities. The more I read, the more I knew this was a program that was designed for our students. About a month later, at a principals meeting, I announced that I'd recently discovered a new program, AVID, to help prepare our students for college, and that it cost money, but I was determined to get it. Immediately across the room, one of the high school principals raised his hand and said, "I had AVID at my previous school in Lubbock, Texas, before I came to Garland ISD. I thought, this is fabulous. He suggested that we meet so he could tell me how he funded AVID. Was that not a coincidence? He mentioned that he had asked for AVID when he was first hired as principal in Garland ISD, and was told that it was too expensive. I still would not allow myself to become discouraged. By the way, that high school principal was Dr. Wendell Brown, who is now the AVID Texas State Director. Another coincidence. We met, he gave me more details about how he funded AVID with the grant from the Texas Education Agency, and encouraged me to pursue AVID because it was a great program for students and for the entire school. After the meeting, as I walked the halls, I continually looked at faces of so many of my students whom I knew would be great candidates for AVID. But where can I find the money? Where can I find the money to fund AVID? I checked the Texas Education website, and there were no new grants available at the time for middle school initiatives. I approached my director about getting AVID, and she said that the district did not have the money for any new programs. So I thought, if I could get a nun to agree to a drill team with skirts at the top of the knee, surely I could get a program to help prepare students for college, right? So I addressed this idea with my director again and again, and always she smiled politely, and that meant there still was no money. So I decided on an action plan, which was much more elaborate than that sketch pad in the late 50s. First, I had to get serious about writing a grant. So I selected one of my assistant principals, a counselor, and 6 teachers, and spoke with each one individually, and described AVID in a nutshell, and then indicated that we had to write a grant for about $25,000 to get this new program. I piqued their interest just enough and set up a meeting. I chose these 6 teachers, an administrator, and a counselor because I recall that those were the individuals needed for an AVID site team, which at the time, I was really sort of clueless about their real function. But one thing I did know is that the site team had to be a powerful one if AVID was going to be successful. The educators that I selected were outstanding teachers who were very nurturing, just like each of you here today attending your institute. They had exceptional pedagogy, and their leadership provided the catalyst to help improve the overall academic achievement of the school. Most importantly, they loved teaching, and they wanted to do what was best for kids. They liked what the AVID mission had to say, and so they were really excited. The grant writing process began, even though I had not received approval from the superintendent for AVID. Then I thought, how could the district not want AVID? It addresses the students in the middle. So as I looked over the ideas that I had thought about, I thought, you know, we have over 50% of our students in the district who would be considered in the middle, and possibly they have that college potential. The district improvement plan indicated that its goal was to prepare students for college by providing AP and IB classes. But who was in those classes? The answer was predominantly Anglo students and very few minority students. As the ethnic demographics were changing in my district with an increased number of Hispanic and African American students, AVID could really make a difference in preparing more students for college by focusing on students in the middle who had college potential. To me, having AVID was a no-brainer. So why was it so difficult for others not to realize this? This was not rocket science. So how was I going to make my point? I called the technology department and asked them to give me a breakdown of the ethnic enrollment in all the advanced classes in secondary schools. I told them that I needed the numbers for a grant, which was partially the truth. The results were astounding. In essence, I now had the documentation to show that there were very few minority students enrolled in advanced classes in 2002 in the middle and high school. My goal was to prove with data that AVID could make a difference, getting more students in rigorous courses and better prepared for college. Then, I was able to set up a meeting with my director and assistant superintendent over instruction to share my discovery. I was ready with the data, but I felt I needed something additionally for my presentation. I heard recently that the television show 60 Minutes had just completed a segment on AVID and that it was very powerful. So I called the AVID Texas State office in Austin to ask the AVID executive director at the time, Chuck Powell, if he had a copy of the 60-minute tape. Yes, he had a copy, which he express mailed to me overnight. I viewed it, and as soon as it arrived that morning of the meeting, I thought, yes, this will surely win them over. It was 1:00 p.m., and my director and my assistant superintendent both arrived together. They listened very attentively, and both were very impressed with the extensive research and viewed the data with amazement. Then we proceeded to the library to view the tape. The 3 of us cried as we watched the 60-minute video. It was the icing on the cake. What a masterful plan. And it worked just as it did with the drill team. They both agreed that I could bring AVID to Sellers. I had to write a grant. Then I confessed, we've already begun writing the grant. which brought a chuckle from the three of us. So, despite all the obstacles, Sellers was going to get AVID. We began making preparations to attend our first summer institute, which was in Austin. And as I said previously, if you believe in something, you can make it happen. It's achievable. A few weeks after the meeting, the assistant superintendent called me in to say that they were also going to allow the high school where Dr. Wendell Brown was principal to have AVID, since he had requested the program the year before. This was very exciting because this would allow our students to continue AVID in high school, and there would also be provided transportation. Everything was beginning to fall in place. Now the only thing that was to finalize the grant, which we did, which we received. So the district decided that I was also going to be the AVID district director. I didn't think anything about the decision at the time, so I said, okay. But I did not understand at the time what that really meant, being the AVID district director. Then during my first institute, I realized for the first time that as director, I had to travel to San Diego, possibly over 3,000 miles away, and leave my school to attend my first ADL training from Monday to Friday, one in the fall, one in the spring, for 2 consecutive years. I was in a state of shock. I wondered, how could I do that and be the principal of my middle school simultaneously? But leaving my school for 5 days was a true test of my leadership. In the end, it was a new beginning for me, a new beginning of my AVID family of directors from across the United States. This continued my journey with AVID in 2 unique positions, as the principal of an AVID school and also as the district director. As I reflect on all the events that occurred when I first read the newspaper article about AVID in 2002, I did not realize it at the time, but it was just fate to get AVID at Sellers. First of all, if I were home and not in McKinney, Texas on that Sunday morning, I would never have read the article, because in Richardson, where I live, the article was not featured that Sunday morning. Additionally, my son did not subscribe to a newspaper, so that morning, my husband decided to go to 7-Eleven to purchase one. Also, we were busy babysitting our 3 young grandchildren that weekend, so for me to find the time to read the newspaper was just another coincidence. So you can see there were many things that happened that were meant to be. It was just destiny for Sellers to have AVID. However, keep in mind, if you believe in something, you can make it happen. It is achievable. During the first year of AVID at Sellers, it was evident that the program had all the educational methodologies to move the school from being an average school to one that had a college-going culture. As you can see, and we'll find out this week, AVID is a system that provides an instructional design that transforms the classroom from passive learners to very engaging learners. Introducing Wicker strategies diversifies the delivery of instruction and provides more rigorous interactive activities. AVID teaches students to get ready for college, and that it just doesn't happen. There must be a plan. This week, those of you who are attending the Institute for the first time will be given so many instructional tools to begin AVIDizing your students and transforming your classrooms from classes where students will want to come and just not have to come. Students will become thinkers and doers and will begin to take more ownership for their learning. It isn't an easy task, but the outcome is so far-reaching. You must keep in mind that AVID is a process and it's a journey, and the full embodiment of the program takes years to evolve and move school-wide. Each year there's excitement of what's to come next, but there are some setbacks, just as there are with every success story. The AVID journey began 8 years ago at Sellers. 4.5 years later, Sellers became a national demonstration school. Sellers was then revalidated as a national demo school just this past April. So what has changed over the 8 years at Sellers? Basically, it's the correlation between the school's mission and AVID's mission. They have AVIDized their entire campus. Over 90% of the faculty has attended the Summer Institute or a PATH training. Their administration and faculty have embraced Wicker strategies and have moved them school-wide. Their entire faculty is on the AVID site team. Once each month, the faculty divides up into instructional teams to assess data, develop needs assessments, plan AVID activities, AVID staff development, AVID parent night, college fairs, and ways to better prepare their students for college. When sixth graders enter Sellers Middle School each year, they immediately become the class that they will graduate from college. So the sixth graders who entered Sellers in 2010 are known as the class of 2021. Additionally, in one of the hallways, there are several large framed photo collages of each sixth grader wearing a graduation cap and gown to ensure that they know immediately what the school's expectations are for them. Last year, 100% of the 8th graders who were enrolled in AVID and enrolled in Algebra 1 passed the state's Algebra 1 end of course exam. Lastly, Sellers' mission is so powerful that they have changed their name to Sellers University to reflect the college-going climate and culture of their school. What happened at Sellers can happen at your school. This week begins the process. I encourage each of you to embrace AVID strategies and culture as much as possible. Doing this will make a difference in your school and provide a better future for your students. I cannot close without sharing a few stories of AVID students whose lives have changed forever. There is Eddie, who in 8th grade came from Mexico in 2003, speaking very little English, and was in a self-contained newcomer class until the end of 8th grade. Then, as a 9th grader, he enrolled at Dr. Wendell Brown's high school and was selected for AVID. Eddie immediately moved from ESL English to regular English to increase his rigor. His sophomore year, he took 4 pre-AP classes. By his senior year, he was ranked 2nd in his class. His counselors called him in one day and said, if you want to be salutatorian, you would have to drop AVID and take another AP class. Eddie said, no way. AVID got me here, so I'm staying with AVID. So he didn't drop the class. As a result of his decision, he ranked 3rd in the class. But he received a 4-year scholarship to the University of Texas at Austin. His senior year, he was selected to address the Summer Institute as one of the voices of AVID. Eddie has just completed his junior year in the Honor School Business Program at the University of Texas. He wants to become an international businessman, so he selected French as his college minor. This past semester, he studied in Paris, France, so he could become equally fluent in French and able to communicate with the business world in 3 languages. This is just one example of how AVID can change the direction of a student's life. Then there's Ariana, who as a 6th grader at Sellers was afraid of her own shadow, very quiet, very introverted. She enrolled in AVID as a 7th grader, and in 8th grade, she spoke before the Garland School Board with such confidence. And she explained to them she couldn't understand how all the schools in Garland did not have AVID. She told them that she didn't want to be overly dramatic, but until she enrolled in AVID, she really wasn't interested in school. 2 years ago, she too was invited to speak at the AVID Summer Institute. And this year, she has just completed her 1st year in college. Finally, There's Fernando, who at an early age, he encountered the violent ways of life. At 13 years old, he was in a gang and doing drugs. He did not care about anybody or anything because he had 100 gang members to back him up. When he was much younger, he lived a rather normal life. Then his life began to unravel. His mother became a drug addict, and his dad left him and his sister alone. His life revolved around gang activities until he was introduced to AVID in the 9th grade. His AVID family at school showed him that there was another side of life, one that was much more rewarding. Last year, he too wrote an essay and was invited to speak at the Summer Institute. This fall, Fernando will attend the University of Texas at Permian Basin. There are many Eddies, Arianas, and Fernandos in your school today who have the individual determination to change the course of their lives. They cannot do it alone. Your AVID students need you, the AVID elective teachers, the AVID site team, the AVID administrators, and the AVID counselors as their AVID family to provide ongoing support. They need organized binders, rigorous courses, Wicker strategies, Cornell notes, philosophical chairs, so they can become thinkers and doers in order to prepare for success in college and ultimately graduation. So no matter what obstacles you will have to undercome in the future, especially with the tight financial situation we're presently experiencing, believe in AVID and what the program can do for your students and for the future of America. And remember that if you believe in something, you can make it happen. It is achievable. Look at me. I did it, and so can you. In 2003, I was told that my middle school would be the only AVID school in Garland ISD. This year, we are bringing 5 elementaries on with a total of 15 AVID schools, 4 high schools, and 6 middle schools. So, you can make a dream a reality. I want to thank you for listening to my AVID story and my AVID journey, which is still evolving. And in closing, I would like you to hear the voices of some of the AVID students in Garland ISD and their message to you.
Teach me, I can succeed.
I came into this world with a clean slate.
Ready for you to help me find my way.
I am bold.
I am amazing.
I am confident.
I am strong.
Keep my confidence intact.
Don't rob me of my ability to be successful.
Let my light shine.
Let my intelligence reach its full potential.
I will because I know I can.
I will because I know I must.
The future of this world depends on me.
I must do my part because I am capable.
I am bold.
I am amazing.
I'm confident.
I am strong.
Keep my confidence intact.
Don't rob me of my ability to be successful.
Teach me.
Teach me.
I can succeed.
I am Patricia De Jesus, and I am going to college. Thank you, AVID.